Hello, BookTube. It's a beautiful, crisp summer day here in Boston. The daytime high temperature will barely reach 70 degrees Fahrenheit. There's a wonderful light breeze off the water, so the air smells of salt. And it's been like this for a couple of days. But before that, for a week, we had a heat wave here in Boston, day after day, where it was roasting hot and humid. Now, I'm not complaining. I loved that weather, but it really wasn't conducive to doing a lot, right? You don't want to overdo it in the heat, even if you like it. I very much like, for those days, not being cold, but I also didn't want to overexert myself, and I also didn't want to leave my little Frida Bean languishing back here, panting in the heat. So I did not go to the Brattle bookshop in downtown Boston last week. Did not go. My appointments were all canceled or postponed, and I didn't go on my own hook. The Brattle is a great used bookstore in the heart of Boston. I've been going there forever and ever and ever. And I postponed everything for a week. I just was content to lay around the couch and write and read. I got a huge amount of reading done because I was doing nothing else. But today is beautiful. So today I went to the Brattle bookshop and I got a pile of books. Pile of them that I want to show you. I want to take you through a lot of them. Now, this is not all of them. What have we got? One, two, three, four, five, six books that I'm not going to show you because they are destined elsewhere, and I'm worried that the recipient might see this. Although there are going to be a couple of cases where even that isn't true, and I will need the help of the recipient. One way or another, the thing that I want to show you here is a batch of mass market paperbacks. Dirt cheap, $1 a piece. I couldn't turn them down, even though they are doubles. I have this whole set. You never know when you're going to see a set like this again, so I grabbed it. These are almost all of the John Carter of Mars novels of Edgar Rice Burroughs. In these beautiful old Martian Tales of Edgar Rice Burroughs paperbacks from Del Rey with these great wraparound covers. I got everything in the series I believe everything is here except the first book, A Princess of Mars. So we have A Fighting Man of Mars, which is great. We have The Mastermind of Mars in beautiful condition. Not all of these are in beautiful condition, although they're all eminently readable. We have John Carter of Mars that wraps up the whole series, or tries to anyway. We have The Chessmen of Mars, macabre Edgar Rice Burroughs at his best. We have Swords of Mars. Again, this is just perfect condition. It still has the sheen on it. We have The Warlord of Mars, the third book, the concluding volume in what is the overarching story of the first three books. We have Synthetic Men of Mars, again with these beautiful wraparound covers, just lovely. We have Gods of Mars, number 2. I do not have number 1. And then we have my personal favorite, Thuvia, Maid of Mars. And this is the one, needless to say, obviously, from my luck, this is the one in the worst condition. It's chipped up top there, and it's a little bit of stuff on the back there. I'm going to see if that will come off, and if it doesn't come off, I will cover it in something. I'll cover it in clear plastic tape so that it's not jumping from book to book. But I couldn't pass these up, even though A Princess of Mars is not in this list. I couldn't pass these up. So those are the first thing that I found and got. Then I got a trade paperback, also science fiction. I never see this in trade paperback, so I grabbed it. This is Lost Dorsai by Gordon Dixon. And this is illustrated all throughout. I mean, copiously illustrated all throughout in this. Sometimes these spot illustrations, but also sometimes full-page illustrations. Look at that. Lovely stuff. Just lovely. And this is set against the backdrop of Gordon Dixon's Dorsai books, an imagined future in which every world has some kind of specialty that it exports to the general solar system market. And the world of Dorsai is very resource poor and has only one resource that it can export, and that is its own fighting men and women, who are the greatest tacticians, the greatest strategicians, and the greatest warriors anywhere in the galaxy, or the solar system, or whatever. And so the Dorsai are bred to war. They are bigger and stronger and faster than other humans. And they routinely conscript their services out as military freelancers for other worlds. There are other kinds of mercenary armies. There are, of course, all worlds have their own standing armies. But if you have a particularly needful job, military job to get done, you might want to pay extra for a Dorsai commander or even Dorsai troops. And this book is the story, the lost Dorsai of the title. This book is the story of what happens if you have a Dorsai who is peaceful, who's pacifist. What will their life be like? And there are a whole bunch of characters that run throughout some of these early Dorsai books. You can see Ian and Kelsey Green, the twins, there on the cover, and it's just a fantastic standalone Dorsai novel, just fantastic. And I saw it in this trade paperback. I know that these existed. I think I've had this book at least in trade paperback, but most of the time I see it in mass market. So I grabbed it. These were all dirt cheap, so I grabbed it. Okay, then this next one is a hardcover. It's in a little rough condition, and I need your help with it. Not to reinforce it. I can do that on my own. One of you emailed me relatively recently, just chatting about books. I leave my email on every video. You feel free to email me and chat about anything at all. A relative that's driving you crazy, problems with your boyfriend, what you're reading, a movie that you just saw, whatever. Given two provisos, you have to keep two things in mind. Number one, if you send me work, I probably won't do it. I have a lot of work of my own to do. So if you send me an email that is one line saying, "Hey Steve, nice to see you. I've attached a document including all of my thoughts on subject X, Y, or Z," and I glance at the document and see that it's 2,500 words long, you have given me a reading assignment. Don't expect me to do it. Don't expect to hear back. And proviso number two is that I get a lot of emails, a lot of them. So I can't respond usually right away. Generally, there is a kind of, there is a wait, and generally there's a kind of mechanism or approach that works best, which is for you to just treat me like a friend. You don't send friends reading assignments. You don't give friends response deadlines. I haven't heard from you in 2 days. I guess this means you hate me. You don't do that to friends at all. If you think it to me. So in other words, you're at your computer, you have a thought. Oh, wait, what about this? If you dash off a line to me, you'll probably get a dashed off response pretty quickly. But somebody, one of you, sent me an email in which you were talking about some books that you had recently acquired, many of which you had seen me talk about on this channel. And you mentioned this person right here, Eugenie Clark, from a book of hers that was called The Lady with the Sharks, that I showed you on this channel. The Lady with the Sharks was a sequel to this book, Lady with the Spear. And one of you emailed me and said that you found and read and really liked Lady with the Sharks, and that you had yet to find Lady with a Spear. It's not in print anymore. It will never be in print again. This is where I need your help. I don't know which email that is. I get a lot of emails every day. So would you kindly, if you're watching this, the person who said, I have recently found and read Lady with the Sharks at your recommendation, and now I'm just looking for Lady with a Spear. One of you mentioned that in an email to me within, I'd say, the last 10 days. If you're watching, feel free to send me another email, because I found this book for you. I already have a copy of it. I found a copy right after I found Lady with the Shark. So I have a copy for you, and I'd be happy to send it to you, wherever you live in rural New Zealand. Then this next one is in a little bit odd shape. There's something on it that I think are just dried paint bubbles. We shall see. I will clean all of these things. I'm just making this video before I do. This is an author that I love, Samuel Eliot Morison. He's a great American historian, and this is a collection of longer nautical-themed reminiscences of his called Spring Tides. The lovely understated cover. There he is with his beloved wife on the back. Those of you who might be wondering when this picture was taken, I can test that Samuel Eliot Morison looked like that even when he was 5 years old. He looked like an old weathered salt even then. This is a thin little thing. It's in a little bit odd shape, and it's got these bubbles on it that I assume are dried paint instead of spider sacks. I'm hoping they're not sacks of spider eggs. One way or another, I'm going to be going over all of these, but I've had Spring Tides from time to time and never managed to hold on to it. One thing and another, send it out to a nautical friend or lose it in a move or something like that. So I'm glad to have this, provided these aren't spider eggs. I'm glad to have it. I will clean it up. Then this next one is part of an ongoing drama here at Hyde Cottage, a tragic comedy, if you will, because I have a bookcase, a floor-to-ceiling bookcase that I set aside for books about essays, bookish essays, prefaces, reviews, collected reviews, autobiographies in the publishing world or the writing world. I had a bookcase in the little book room that was devoted to that, but it became so ridiculously overcrowded with books spilling onto the floor that I eventually moved all the books off a very big bookcase out here in the living room and designated that for those kinds of books. Moved them all out here. And the bookcase instantly filled and is now every bit as comically overcrowded as the original was. And the books just keep appearing. I haven't dealt with it yet. I will. What I need to do is clear off the bookcase right next to it and just fill that with these books as well, rather than curtail the books, because the books themselves bring me a lot of joy. And I found one. I found another one today. This is Claremont Essays by Diana Trilling. And this is a collection of critical pieces of hers that I think she wrote for The Nation. Yeah, she wrote for The Nation. And they range all over the map. This is what is in here. Some of the table of contents is right there listed on the cover. But what have we got here? She rereads The House of Mirth. She writes about Enrico Caruso. She writes about the Profumo case and also Alger Hiss. A piece about Virginia Woolf, a piece about Alice James, a piece about Tom Sawyer, Norman Mailer, Marilyn Monroe, just the sort of thing. That is our author. I love these kinds of things, just love them. And I like Diana Trilling's occasional prose a lot more than I like the occasional prose of her husband, Lionel Trilling, who got it into his head fairly early on that he was some sort of intellectual. And we have many, many accounts of people who attended the legendary parties in New York that the Trillings would give in their legendary apartment. Not one of those visitors to any of those parties ever came away with any intellectual tidings. Nevertheless, Lionel Trilling took it into his head that he was an intellectual. And it only worked to the detriment of his prose, so that his own collection like this, The Obligation to Be Intelligent, or something like that, although it is occasionally good, is also occasionally bombastic and wordy, whereas Diana Trilling never is. So this was great. To find this, where it's going to go, I have no idea. None whatsoever. Then we have a batch of hardcovers here. The first one is from just a few years ago. I actually got an advanced copy of this from the publisher. I think I talked about it on this channel. I got a finished copy, and I think I talked about it on this channel. 2019. This is Christopher Benfrey. I gave this to somebody. But this is his book, If. And this is about Rudyard Kipling. It's a consideration not only of the long shadow that Kipling has cast on generations that followed him, and also a bit of a detail about how his reputation has changed. His reputation has cratered when once upon a time, 100 years ago, almost exactly 100 years ago, he was the foremost literary name in the Western world. The youngest person to win a Nobel Prize in literature, on everybody's bookshelf. Somehow, seemingly suddenly, that reputation changed. And this book is partly about that, but it's mostly about the time that he spent in Vermont. It's mostly about the time he spent in America. Certainly the best parts of it, the most evocative parts of it, are about that time. The time that he spent in Vermont was eventually brought to an end by a family squabble. Otherwise, as Benfrey points out, he would probably have stayed forever. Kipling himself used to say there were two places where he was completely at home, two places that he loved more than any other, Bombay and Brattleboro, Vermont. And he used to lament that he couldn't go back to either one of them. And I liked this book, but I saw it at the Brattle and thought, do you still have this? You don't still have this. I have Angus Wilson's biography, The Strange Ride of Rudyard Kipling, but I don't have this. So since all these stuff was dirt cheap, I grabbed it. Then a couple of these next ones, I want to show you some of the options that you can get when you're at the Brattle, right? Because the Brattle is a used bookstore, and all the books that you're encountering out in the sale lot or in the store itself have had a life before they encounter you. And sometimes that is the tipping point for me. Sometimes that is the selling point. And that is true of a number of the hardcovers that I want to show you now, some of which are doubles. I'm just going to replace the personality-free paperback that I have with a hardcover. First one is A Storm of War by Andrew Roberts. This is a one-volume narrative history of World War II, written by somebody who I've praised this author before. He really cannot do wrong. even when I disagree with his books, if you're going to write a long hymn of praise to Napoleon Bonaparte, I'm going to disagree with you. If you're going to write a long hymn of praise to King George III, I'm going to disagree with you. Nevertheless, he's such a fantastic writer that I'm on for the ride. And so I would probably have got this anyway for $1 to replace my paperback. But in addition to that, the selling point was that somebody filled this with clippings. Just filled it with clippings, reviews, and they carefully dated them, where this was and when they clipped it. Just fantastic. That's at the beginning and then at the end as well. And somebody had to go to a great deal of care to do that. And I love that. I absolutely love it. Now, the person who did that almost certainly didn't give this up. They probably died. But I went years and years loving it when I found a hardcover or paperback where somebody had done that, and yet not doing it myself. For years and years, for decades, I would read every book review, paper, print book reviews. I would pull out the reviews that I really loved. I would date them just the way this person did, because once you pull them out, usually you lose the date. And then I would put them in a filing cabinet arranged by year. So 1992, 1993, 1994, and never go back. I never went back to those filing cabinets, because when a need would suddenly come upon me, I would think, oh, okay, well, it's going to take you an hour to search for that thing, so don't do it. Then I realized very belatedly, just a couple of years ago, I realized that what I should be doing instead is, first of all, get rid of the filing cabinet, take all the reviews that are in there and clip them, fold them, and put them in the books so that I know exactly where they are. And so, in other words, it took me forever to duplicate the book-owning behavior that I loved encountering in the wild. So when I saw that, I thought, okay, well, if somebody went to the bother of doing that, I'm not going to run the risk of it ending up in the dumpster in the back of the sale lot. I will gladly replace my featureless trade paperback with this hardcover. And it turned out that was true of a number of books that I found. Now, I want to show you, I want to make sure that I get all of the ones that... yeah, okay, this next one is also a double. This is Mary Beard's SPQR. The abbreviation, this abbreviation was found on a lot of Roman monuments that signaled that the monument was there by the sufferance and at the permission of the Senate and people of Rome. And this is a hardcover. Still got the gilt on all of the on the laurels there. But this has also paperwork in the back. Somebody took extensive notes and kept their paperwork in the back. So I grabbed it because once again I have a featureless trade paperback that I will either give it to one of you or I will give it back to the Brattle. I don't need it anymore. The same thing is true. This next one, Piers Brendan. I had this. I think we might have seen it on this channel. Or no. I bet, now that I think about it, I bet this was just a little too early. I bet we weren't talking when this came out. Yeah, 2007. So 2007, 2008, this was before we knew each other. But I read it and really liked it and got rid of it. This is by Piers Brendan, and it's called The Decline and Fall of the British Empire, 1781 to 1997. Great big hardcover with deckled edges. And again, someone has gone through and very carefully clipped out everything, having to do not only with the book, see, this is dated, not only with the book, but also with the subject. So this not only has every mainstream review that this thing got, that the person subscribed to, but also pieces just on imperialism and the British Raj and whatnot. As long as somebody's going to go to that much of a bother, I want this. I want this volume. And the same thing is true with this last one. So this is sort of a clipper of reviews, sort of the review quipping equivalent of the Tabby Cat that we met a year ago, where I encountered book after book after book that had 80 million of those plastic multicolored tabs in it. This is sort of the same thing. These clearly all came from the same person. And this one is also famous, and I also have a featureless trade paperback that I no longer need now. This is The War of the World, 20th Century Conflict and the Decline of the Descent of the West by Neil Ferguson. This is the book that really made him a pile of money and really secured his reputation as historian to the masses or whatever. And again, look at all the stuff that somebody has put in here. Somebody went through and just filled this with clippings. Just filled it with What do we got here? This is a review from The Economist from 2008. Fantastic. There's the New York Times book review. Michael Hirsch did the New York Times book review. I swear, the reviews are going to be as entertaining to read as rereading the book. And I will certainly reread the book. I haven't touched the trade paperback in a while. Now I don't need to. Now I will. I have the version that I want. It's an honor, a pleasure to give these things another home for a while. They obviously had a loving home and a loving owner. Who knows what happened to that owner, but now they have another one. And they're active books. It's not that I bought things I don't want because they had this kind of attention to them. They're active books. They're books that I already had, so I know that I want them. Then these next two are trade paperbacks. They are I believe, both of them duplicates in the sense that I'm pretty sure I've hauled them on this channel before and then got rid of them. But these are both Gardner Dozois science fiction anthologies. Here we have the 8th annual Year's Best Science Fiction with the most famous cover of the whole batch. Nice big floppy trade paperback. And then we have the 5th annual collection. Both Gardner Dozois, he was a great science fiction editor. And at the end of every year, for 36 years, he made these huge volumes that start with a huge essay of his about the state of the art and then go on to what he considers to be the best science fiction stories from that year, culled from a reading that was enormously wide. Let's see. I know you're going to want to know. So let's see who's in this 5th collection. We have Pat Murphy, Bruce McAllister. We have Flowers of Edo by Bruce Sterling. We have Kate Wilhelm, Forever Yours, Anna. Alexander Jablokov. We have Dinosaurs by Walter John Williams. Fantastic. We have Paul McCauley, Neil Barrett. We have Ursula Le Guin, Buffalo Gals, Won't You Come Out Tonight? We have The Pardoner's Tale by Robert Silverberg. The Evening and the Morning and the Night by Octavia Butler. Night of the Cooters by Howard Waldrop. Terrific story. Shades by Lucius Shepard. The Faithful Companion at 40 by Karen Jo Fowler. Who else here? The Amir's Clock by Ian Watson. Sue Powlick, don't know that name. Michael Flynn. Dean Whitlock, not really know that name. Neil Barrett has a second entry. Is that a second Neil Barrett? Yeah, it is. He has 2 entries in here. All the Hues of Hell by the great Gene Wolfe. America by Orson Scott Card. For Thus Do I Remember Carthage by Michael Bishop. I seem to remember really loving that story. And Mother Goddess of the World by Kim Stanley Robinson. So I got this book when it first came out. I bought it with my own money when it first came out. This would have been $12.95. Back when that was real money. And I got all these at one point or another. I've had all of them and just cycle through them, get rid of them one way or another. And then we have the 8th collection with this beautiful Michael Whelan cover. And who is in here? Let's see who's in here. James Patrick Kelly again. The Shobi Story by Ursula Le Guin. The Braver Thing by Charles Sheffield. We See Things Differently by Bruce Sterling. Another Kate Wilhelm and the Angels Sing. Bears Discover Fire by Terry Bisson. That he got a lot of attention for that story. The All Consuming by Lucius Shepard and Robert Fraser. The Kyrene Purse by Michael Moorcock. Don't think I've read that. Tower of Babylon by Ted Chiang. I'm pretty sure that was the first time he appeared in one of these. Another Alexander Jablokov. The First Since Ancient Persia by John Brunner. Inertia by Nancy Kress. So this has Kate Wilhelm and Nancy Kress. The only name missing is Connie Willis. Learning to Be Me by Greg Egan. Cibola by Connie Willis. Okay, great. We have Hot Sky by Robert Silverberg. And The Hemingway Hoax by Joe Haldeman, which I think he later made into a novel. One way or another. I love these anthologies. They are probably pound for pound my favorite science fiction anthologies, not just because Dozois was such a great picker, but also because they're so big. There's something about a big science fiction anthology that I really love. And I've had these before, even while I've had this channel, because there was a period there during the pandemic where some of you were buying those cheap big lot jobs of books on eBay for me, because you're so incredibly nice. And I also bought a couple of them myself, just because some of Sean D. Standfast's horror stories about buying things on eBay sort of piqued my curiosity. I was kind of curious to see what it would be like and whether or not any of the pitfalls could be avoided. I learned quite a bit, not only from his strictures, from his videos, but also just from doing it. I learned quite a bit, quite a bit. There are all sorts of, there's like a basic decalogue of rules for how to deal with eBay. It's still not going to protect you from people who are simply being dishonest, but you don't find a lot of those people because hardly anybody goes to eBay in order to just shoot their wad and leave. Hardly anybody does that. Most people who sell on eBay want to make a regular thing of it. And you can't just explicitly lie and do that because the ratings will come back to haunt you. People will say, you just explicitly lied to me. I'm going to rate this 1 star and I'm going to give a long testimonial about how horrible you are. So most people on eBay, I think, are not just explicitly lying. Instead, they get around explicitly lying by giving themselves all sorts of wiggle room. They'll say, well, I'm rating the book that I've posted here as such and such a condition, which means it may have highlighting, it may be missing a dust jacket. Well, you've got the thing right in front of you. Is it highlighted? Is it missing a dust jacket or not? If a seller hides behind the actual cut and paste definition of that condition, fair, like new, if they hide behind that rather than writing a condition of their own, a description of the item, probably they are hiding something. If they show a stock photo, a JPEG pulled from Google, instead of showing you a picture of the thing you're buying, probably they're hiding something. Once you learn some of those rules, it's possible to make fairly good purchases on eBay. So I did a couple of those a year and a half ago. And these might have been among them. I sat right down to make this video, so I haven't checked. I'm pretty sure that I already have a copy of this. But the reason why it was on my mind is because of a big science fiction event that's coming your way, New Worlds November, in which myself and a bunch of other great booktubers are doing an event all through the month of November celebrating science fiction and short science fiction short stories and novellas. Tremendous fun. It's going to be so much fun. I encourage you all to set aside time, make a TBR, and join us. We also just recently did a live stream that was a lot of fun. I will leave a link to it down below because you had a whole group of people weighing in on science fiction. Short stories, novels, authors. It was a lot of fun. So I got these, and I will gobble up any other $1 science fiction short story anthologies that come my way. And then the last book here is in a little bit of rotten shape, but I will clean it up, is a collection of New Yorker cartoons. I mentioned many times on this channel how much I love New Yorker cartoons. I think they speak a language of their own, and I love that language. And in addition to all of the innumerable New Yorker cartoon collections that the New Yorkers brought out over time, they've also allowed regular artists of theirs to bring out collections. My favorite being Helen Hokinson, but virtually everybody else has done it at one point or another. And this is one I've never seen before. I've seen this guy's artwork. I love this guy's artwork. He is all over every New Yorker cartoon collection. But I've never owned a volume of his before. This is Barney Toby. And this is B. Toby of the New Yorker. Go down there and make them laugh. This is just all of his cartoons going over decades. This is 2 old ladies in a room full of chintzy antiques. And then the caption is, well, Emmeline, what's new? There's nothing in that room that's new. And it goes on from there. It's got a little forward by the author, but otherwise it's all just it's all just his own stuff with great period captions. Here's a wife encounters her husband in the closet. Paul, is anybody ever really happy? Yeah, you'd have to be there. This is in rough shape, but I will fix it up, and I have a whole shelf of New Yorker cartoons that this will go on. Pride of place. First, I will lovingly page my way through it, and then it will go with, Booth and Hokinson and a whole bunch of others. Peter Arno, all those sorts of people. They all have volumes like this, and I'm glad to find this. I'll make it in better shape once it goes on the shelf. So there you go. That was my Brattle haul for today to start off this week. Hot weather is returning tomorrow and the next day, and all of the week is working under the threat of lurking thundershowers, rain and thunder showers. So And also, a lot of the appointments that I have in the upcoming week are not anywhere near the Brattle bookshop, so that they'll take me elsewhere. I'm not going to hare across town to a great used bookstore in order to get a pile of books that I don't need. It's one thing if propinquity lends itself, but otherwise, no. But I thought I would do this anyway, just because it's been a whole week without a Brattle haul. We don't like that. So can we do a Steve pyramid? I don't know if we can or not. We have B. Toby of the New Yorker. We have 2 Gardner Dozois science fiction anthologies. We have War in the World, The War of the World, Neil Ferguson's breakout hit about the World War I and World War II. We have The Decline and Fall of the British Empire. We have SPQR by Mary Beard. And we have The Storm of War. And all 4 of those have been lovingly curated by somebody who was their original owner. Then we have If, short look at Rudyard Kipling's American years. We have Claremont Essays by Diana Trilling. We have Spring Tides by Samuel Eliot Morrison, a collection of nautical themes, autobiographical themes like that. We have Lady with a Spear, which is destined for one of you if you will get in touch with me. We have Lost Dorsai. And then we have almost all of the John Carter novels. All but the first one is there. So that was my Brattle haul. I'm going to spend some time cleaning these things up and sorting them out and inventorying them, and then that will be it. I don't think I'll be going back to the Brattle this week. So that's going to have to tide us both over. but I will be back to you. I mean, not necessarily to the Brattle, but I'll be back to prattle on to you. No Brattle, but prattle. Thank you, Mark, too.